Don't give me more space.
Thank you, Ms. Tanya.
We've done roll call, by the way.
All right, Mr. Chair, we're ready when you are.
I would like to call the November 10th Alamance County Planning Board meeting to order. Ms. Tanya, you've already got the roll call attended to?
Yes, sir, we do.
Awesome. Has everybody had opportunity to review minutes from our last meeting?
No minutes provided this month. We're catching up from doing our small meetings and subcommittees, so we'll present two meetings in next month.
Okay. All right. Public comments? Mr. Dearman.
He's for the case tonight,
Mhm.
so he's not actually just for the open comments. We're
Okay.
here now.
All right. Do we need to wait on these others as well?
We can ask.
Mr. Provett?
What?
Would you
Yeah,
like
we
to?
about signing up, in case we need to talk about with the ordinance. I don't really have nothing to say.
We'll wait until we get to the ordinance.
Okay. All right. Ms. Tanya, what do you have for us?
All right, so tonight we are looking at. All right, so tonight, the first item on the agenda is a waiver request. This is a waiver from the Unified Development Ordinance subdivision section. What we have tonight is Mr. Dearman has petitioned the board to have a side setback waiver. The side setback requirements for structures in the county are 10 foot. Mr. Dearman is actually asking for a 7-foot setback to put a 2-car garage beside his home. You've been provided a little bit of information, the language straight out of the ordinance of what the requirements are by our UDO. And then, of course, the information on what waiver even requires. You've got his information of what he's asking for and what his situation is. You've got a letter from his engineer talking about what he has drawn and where his opinion is on the garage. You also have a map showing you just a picture of the property lines, which are the red lines on the map. And then you'll see the house, the driveway as it exists. This is a December 2020 aerials. So you can see how that sits on the property. He has had the plans reviewed for the garage, and that has passed plan review for the building inspections department. So that does meet what we need. And then you've got a neighbor's letter saying that he is good with Mr. Dearman on the property. And then you'll see, but you'll see the environmental health permit for where the proposed garage is going. And that's where you see that 7-foot setback come in on the property. And you can see where the septic system and everything is too. And then a couple of the back pages are the original plats for this subdivision. And you can kind of see he's on that cul-de-sac and how these lots lay out, just kind of give you a bigger picture. We did zoom in, although not a great picture. You can see his lot dimensions and how his lot lays out for the plat for the second map that we're providing. On the back side, you're going to see that we provided the deed for the property to show that he is in fact the owner and has a right to request the waiver for right now. Part of the requirements of the waiver for the board to entertain, because part of this is where because of the nature, features, or other existing physical conditions peculiar to this site, compliance with standards and requirements of this section will cause an unusual or unnecessary hardship to the subdivider, waivers may be permitted, provided that such waivers will not have the effect of nullifying the purpose of these regulations. So for that, we have reviewed and not found that there are peculiar situation here for this property or some special undue hardship provided by ordinance for this garage to be placed on the property. So the 7-foot setback request is 3 foot different than what the ordinance requires. So that's what petitioner tonight is asking for approval. You all will do a recommendation, denial or approval, and then that will go to the Board of Commissioners. They'll have an evidentiary hearing, which we've advertised in the newspaper. And then we had already sent notice to the adjoining neighbors, which is also required by law, and posted the property. So that evidentiary hearing will be Monday night upon y'all's decision tonight, and you all can table or further discuss at a different time. That's still an option. Is what the board wants to do. Mr. Dearman is going to present his case to you all as well.
And as a reminder to all, just be sure to speak loud and clear so that it transmits for YouTube and our Zoom guests.
Everybody.
Good evening, sir.
Oh, man. Yes, my biggest case is that I've tried every aspect that I can as far as getting this garage put built. And another thing is talk to my neighbors. And if I looked at the land layout, and if you was probably say, why ain't the building on the other side? It's because of where I talked to my designer. He's went in and he's looked and he's done. Says there's really no way to do it. And if I had to put it on, and if you're saying put it on the other side, it's because even if I did a driveway on the other side, I looked at my neighbor and I'd be dumping water because of the land, the way the land layout is into her yard. And I'm not gonna do that. You know, there ain't no questions.
So are you lot 11? 12.
Let me see.
That is lot 12. Well,
They don't have a number on
I think it's
it.
11. I think it's 11.
it's 11. Okay, so
Mhm.
on lot 10, I'm assuming that's the lot where they have written permission to be within less than 10 feet from the line.
It's one.
So lot numbers they're referencing are this old plat from the original subdivision.
Yes, lot 10.
Yeah.
So you're 11, they're 10.
Yes, sir.
All right, so where is a house on lot 10? How far is it from the line?
I don't know. I didn't measure. It's good ways.
Ms. Tanya, do you have a way of pulling that up on GIS?
We're gonna work on it real quick. It's just a minute. Are you going to-
Yeah.
Okay, she's gonna pull it up on big screen so y'all can see it.
What's the street number?
2872 Springfield Court.
Second, you want to see?
Yeah, so measure from the blue line over to the house on the right and see if that's more than 13 feet.
So this is not going to be the best measurement, but I will get a measurement.
It does vary some, but not that much.
Well, here we go.
No,
Oh,
no,
No,
from the line over to the other house
The neighbor's house.
on lot 10.
Here,
Yep. Yeah. What's that distance? About?
23 feet.
So we did have tax office actually pull the original survey that we were showing and map it onto GIS, so that should be pretty darn accurate tonight.
So it's 23 feet.
Yeah, and plus or minus maybe a foot or two is all you're looking at, but they did remap it to make sure we were as close as we could get that.
And when you went to your neighbors and said, would you sell me this piece of property as much as 3 feet wide so I can be in compliance? They said, we ain't doing that, but we'll sign a letter saying that we don't have a problem with it. But when we turn around and sell this property, the next people may come in here and say, wait a minute. this ain't right. That's where they are with it.
Well, they were fine with it as far as. They're fine with it.
But if they sold you 3 feet, they'd still be 20 feet off that line. Which puts you in compliance. It leaves them in compliance and it solves this problem. We don't have to break the rules, so to speak.
They're not gonna sell me. Sell me.
Well, I think they're being ugly.
I'm trying to think here, that's 0.51 acres in your lot, correct?
Well, that's what it says.
That's, okay, now
For the
you have,
half acre
and you, and I'm assuming you have well and septic on that property as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, just that-
that's
you
what
want
this
to-
right here.
I seen it, I looked at it. Okay, so you have well and septic there on a half acre lot.
Yes.
Which is less than 30,000 feet.
They are, whoever did that subdivision, shoehorned those houses in there.
Well, yeah, with a lot of Vaseline on the
You don't
edge.
have, do you have a well or you on?
No, I just have septic. I'm on
Yeah, so
the
they're-
community well.
Okay, community, all right. The only time that I've known that the setback requirements would be less than 10 feet is sometimes when you're in a municipality.
Mhm.
Okay, I do remember back first part of this year that we was working down in Apex and their setback requirements was 5 feet. But them being a municipality, having water and sewer, and it is a historical district as well, they can set that. With a 10-foot setback, and that, and I understand exactly what you're saying. With a 10-foot setback, all it's gonna take is for your neighbor to decide that they're ready to move to the beach, move out of state, sell that house, and for whatever reason, whoever buys it has got a bad case of, can't get along with nobody. Your access getting around that house, your garage and that 7-foot property line is gonna be limited pretty hard.
Well, you talking about just the 5? It's only 7 foot
I
between.
understand that,
Okay.
but there's gonna come times that you're gonna have to access. This is what I do know, Ted. If you got a septic system at that house, it's gonna be in the backyard, correct?
Yes, it is.
It is
Okay.
in the backyard.
All right.
It is.
And I'm just looking at that right there. And I did look at the map that was provided by Tara Hart from the health department. If and when the time comes, you have to do maintenance and or service that septic system. 7 foot is not gonna get you by there, especially if that neighbor over there is having their coffee didn't perk this morning kind of day. Miss Ellington Graves,
Yes, sir.
you are a realtor. I would appreciate if you would jump in as far as your experience in the past dealing with such issues.
I will, I noticed that you're in Springfield Estates and there's restrictive covenants for that neighborhood. And normally if you're going to, and I haven't looked at the restrictive covenants, I'm not familiar, I mean, I don't know the verbatim what they say, but normally if you are going to deviate from what the restrictive covenants state that you have to follow as a homeowner, you typically have to either have the majority of the homeowners in that particular phase or whatever those restrictions are tied to. It could be a particular phase of Springfield Estates, or it could be the entire development. But you typically have to have the majority, or at least, and some of them are written that you have to have unanimous approval. I don't know how that falls in the law with, if the county says it's okay, but that could open you up to some issues with your neighbors.
And I've been there 30 years and I don't know nothing about the,
Well, they're recorded and they're on record. So
I don't.
you may have gotten them at closing when you purchased your home.
Okay.
But there are restrictive covenants for Springfield Estates. We could potentially pull those up in the Register of Deeds, but they should be on public record, and they may or may not differentiate between the 10-foot setback.
We are not here to make life hard on you. We want to be real clear on that. We want to help you. That's our job. But we want to make sure that what we do in an effort to help you doesn't make life harder on you down the road
In the future.
because as I'm looking at this picture right here, and I've been doing this kind of stuff that I do for 37 years. So I'm telling you, there's some folks in the community that's just looking for a reason to make life hard on somebody else. And we don't want to, we'd rather work through this on the front end and you be able to feel good and sleep good about it on the back end than to say, oh yeah, go right ahead, ain't no problem, and know that it's coming. That's what we don't want to do.
And you was saying something about the septic tank. You have on the left, what you're facing it, on the right hand side,
Mhm.
there's plenty of room around that goes around on the other side.
I understand, but and this is not a,
Just that septic tank pumps.
I'm with
So
you.
you know
I'm
the
with
truck
you.
can get there.
And I'm trying to say, here's my whole thing. This is what I know to tell you. Looking at that map right there, I've been installing septic systems for 30 years. Trust me, I know everything it is about putting them in, servicing them, maintaining them, and everything.
Okay.
If that septic system were to start giving trouble, especially around that tank area, and that tank had to be replaced, I would want to come through the side that those two white cars is parked on. Because that truck's gonna weigh in excess of 30,000 pounds. And when I drive that truck across your septic lines, your problem is gonna be a whole lot more than just replacing a tank. You're gonna be crushing lines and everything else. That's why I said what I did. And I'm also gonna back this up in a letter of law, and I'm glad we have an attorney in our Zoom tonight. But my understanding, that property line by the letter of the law is exactly that. There are neighbors out there that if your hat blows off your head into their yard, you got to have Phil's McCoys on your hands. And that's my whole thing. Mr. Scott, would you mind jumping in and giving your point of view here, please?
Yes, sir. Glad to be here. I do agree that the written consent from the next door neighbors today is great. But once it is another buyer comes in and moves in, it could be a big issue if they, say, hey, I do not want you on my property, and do not grant you that right-of-way easement, verbally or written, to allow you or anyone else that needs to access your property, especially the backside, to come around using the driveway and go around the garage with that limited space if this is granted.
Mr. Dearman, let me ask you a question, because I'm looking at that picture right there. The 24 by 27 attached garage, that 7-foot measurement, is that from that front corner coming in that driveway to the property line?
Just that front.
All right, well, this is what I'm going to suggest to you. And I understand aesthetics, and we've got a realtor over here that's pretty much, best I can tell, she's a leader in her field.
Thank you, Mr. Pop.
You're very welcome. What I do know to tell you, it looks like to me there's a 16-foot setback from that #1 septic line to the back of that garage. State of North Carolina and Alamance County especially only requires 5 feet. If you slide that garage to the rear, you'll be able to get your 10 feet on that front corner, because from what I'm looking at, it appears to me that the back corner of that garage would be your 10 feet from that property line.
Back corner's more than 10 foot.
That's one, and please understand, I'm with you. I understand. I got a house too. Sometimes I want to do things. All I'm saying is if you slide that garage to the back, because you got 11 foot to play with, 11 foot to play with.
Gotcha.
You slide that
That's what-
garage back.
That was gonna be my question. Can you not move the whole garage toward the back of the lot far enough to the point that the front corner is 10 feet off?
And I
Is
will,
there another issue that we're not aware of?
It's attached to the house, and it's pretty much the same, the size of the house, the 27.
I'm with you.
Oh, I
If you
see what you're
step it
saying.
Back, if you look, there's a patio behind it. If you
Mhm.
step it back.
Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you what I have seen, and I'm sure Ms. Graves over here has as well. They're building houses now that when you look at the garage in front of that garage is not full width at the front. You'll have like a 2-bay garage. One bay will be a set width, and then it'll step back maybe 2 or 3 feet, and then you'll have your second bay. On the inside, regardless which door you walk in, it's one open area. But the way that front, you understand what I'm saying? The way that front is, you could potentially do that, get your 10 feet, because I'm with you. I understand exactly what you want to do. My whole thing is from a legal standpoint, flirting with that property line. I mean, if you're 7 foot from it, if you're gonna flirt with it that much, I mean, down the road, another buyer, and this is the thing. Whoever, if they decide to sell that house, it's not gonna be somebody from, the other side of 87, because you over on near, Elon Osprey Road. You could very well have somebody moving in here from out of state for a job. And like I said, legally, in the eyes of the law, from property iron to property iron in a straight line, that's the line. So if they come in here and they start pushing it and start making a big issue out of it, the money you're gonna spend defending yourself in legal cost in a courtroom, you're gonna hate your Santa Garage.
So you saying that if they consented to it and they sell this property,
If they consent to it and they sell it, their consent does not transfer with that deed. Am I correct, sir?
Unless they agree to put it in writing, yes. that's
And
correct.
when they put it in writing, then you're gonna run into an issue of potential buyers not wanting to buy it.
That's right. So they'd be better off to go ahead and deed that little section off, sell it to you, put it on your deed, put everything in compliance, and then when it comes up the next time, there ain't no questions. Here's a pin and here's a pin. That's just trade line. And then there's the offset. And That's,
And,
that's what we're talking about.
and if you and your wife or your family decided to sell at some point, it's gonna, there's implications for that too. So it's not just dealing with a new neighbor. But if your life suddenly takes a different direction and you decide to sell, then that's something you've got to remedy prior to selling, or you've got to disclose that and find a buyer that's going to be willing to take that same risk that you're taking on. And aesthetically, if you drop back that second bay, like Mr. Cobb mentioned,
It would probably look nice.
it would add some character to your front, to your curb appeal as well.
Since you brought that up, I'm gonna throw somebody else under the bus. Home inspections. If a home inspector goes out and verifies property lines and you don't have your minimum 10 feet, what generally happens?
We don't normally check the property lines, but
You're structural only.
Yeah, but if a buyer does a survey,
Okay,
if you have a mortgage on the property and that your mortgage company
it
might
may
be
be a red
interested in
flag.
knowing.
You see a building structure too close, it may be a red flag. We might notify somebody, but basically it's not part of this home inspection property lines.
okay.
I just purchased a property, Greensboro. They're luxury apartments. We took a church and rebuilt it. We had the same issue. It was, had to be 5 foot. We was 4'6" from it. And buyer wouldn't say what you want to say, what you want to sell, but it was just crazy. We could have bought the whole property for it. So we went back and asked for the variance. I didn't have no idea I'd be back in the same boat again. But you telling me issues that I should already be dealing with in the future on the place I already just got the variance on.
Well,
We not trying to make your life hard. We are doing what we can to smooth the road out for you down the road.
Understand?
and I can say this, dealing with building inspectors as well as health departments, I've worked with both of them in a majority of this state. And if they have a recorded setback, in this particular case, in the outside municipalities in Alamance County, it's a 10-foot minimum. And there are cases that setback is 30 to 35 foot off a property line. But I do know that if an inspector comes out to do their job and they look at something and they feel like you might be tight, he or she will pull a tape out. And I know this happened to a contractor right here in Alamance County within the last year. He set a septic tank. He was 9 foot 10 inches off the property line and they made him move it. 2 inches. They
In
made him
regards
move
to
it.
the question about the covenants and restrictions, we have pulled those out and all that they were saying it said they must meet the county's requirements.
Okay.
And that was recorded in 1975.
With that,
Do you have them? We didn't give you the proposal. It's, look for 12 people.
And that's really good news. That's a positive because sometimes they're more restrictive than the county, so. We just want to protect you moving forward.
Yeah.
I expect there are some lenders out there that if, and I'm just saying, if you did decide later on that you done made yours, you was ready to have a, live a life of luxury and decide to sell that house when it come time for them to do a mortgage. If it's not meeting county requirements, I expect it'd be hard to get a loan on it.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't get title insurance either.
Say that one more time. So what you just said one more time?
If you decide to sell
Okay,
and somebody comes in, a potential buyer to buy your house,
okay.
then when that mortgage lender gets involved, because they're the ones that's gonna want the septic inspection, the well inspection, but you don't have a well, they're gonna want a home inspection. That's where, and the reason I jumped over Mr. Hall like I did, this guy's, he's good at what he does. They're gonna want these inspections. A mortgage lender is not gonna jump out here and drop. I'm not been to your house. Real estate market's crazy right now. A mortgage lender is not gonna jump and drop several $100,000 on a piece of property if they're uncomfortable with it. They won't do it. So it's one of those things, I'm with you on wanting the garage. I'm with you there. I got you. But, when you get less than in the county minimums of 10 feet, and that's not just here. The only time I've seen a setback less than 10 feet is if, like I said, if you're in a municipality. And that's even rare within itself. It's generally gonna be in a historic district. All right. So when you get less than that 10, you actually opening yourself up for a whole lot. Then you got insurance requirements. I mean, I noticed there was trees on that map. If you're, let's say you're 7 foot off that property line, storm comes through, blows your neighbor's tree down, clips the corner of your garage, insurance company can deny, well, you're not 10 foot off. Well, I got away from the county. I understand that, but the rule says 10 foot. So that's why I'm saying the pleasure of being able to hit that garage door open and pulling your truck in there, shut the door, I'm with you. Trust me, I'm with you. That heartburn can burn a whole lot harder later on.
So just so I understand, so looking at a scenario where, say, whatever happens here, he goes to county commissioners. Let's say the county commissioners approves a request, his or somebody else's. Does that not change the county's requirement? What is that person who has that property, who's just received approval from the county commissioners to do something? What does that provide that homeowners? There's still no protection from some of the things that y'all are mentioning?
Well, as far as that, even if he got a waiver, he ain't got to be but 2 feet off that property line. That's not gonna move that property line. And there's gonna be times he's gonna need to access his backyard going that way of his house.
I was just curious about the legal aspects
And
or the.
I've dealt with property lines before. Right here in City of Graham, as a matter of fact. I've dealt with property lines before, and the guy come out there and he's all glad you're doing what you're doing. He's glad you're taking that old rotten pin oak tree down and look you dead straight in the face, say, by the way, that limb best not hit my car. That's a game changer. That's a game changer. So the setbacks are set for a reason.
Yeah, I understand that, but a variance relieves that reason, and so if it's approved, and so I just wasn't sure what the homeowner actually has, if they get approved from the county commissioners to go inside that setback, what are they actually getting other than just the permission from the county commissioners to build there? Is there no protection from some of the things that you are mentioning? Is there?
Correct.
Okay.
There may be some
Bad
protection.
decisions and wrong decisions do not negate the law.
And that property line, like I was saying earlier, that map's gone now, but like I was saying earlier, when you got a property corner in your front yard and you got a property corner in your backyard, I promise you get the right neighbor in there, he's gonna enforce that 100. Don't you, when you go through there with your zero turn, don't you put no clippings in his yard. Don't you dare do it. I've seen it. So I guess.
Because I just, if you notice, if you pull it back up, there's a fence.
Uh-huh.
And you keep asking me why I don't buy the neighbor's property. It's because the fence.
I'm with you.
I mean,
I'm with you. I
That
fully-
zero turn is what got that fence there.
so,
Okay.
Yeah,
They've been there 40-some years. I know they might sell tomorrow. Told you I've been there 30, some almost 30 years.
Mhm.
And I don't. I really can't see that little 3 foot. You know, I thought about if the whole thing was within 3 foot, I wouldn't even be here. But that corner, I guess it all says the whole thing have to be, if it's a piece on it, it's 3 foot, no matter.
So is it 24 wide, 27 deep?
27 deep, yes, sir. It's the depth of the aisle.
So if you made it completely in compliance, it would be 21 feet wide and 27 feet deep.
Yes.
Well, that'd be tight.
Yeah, then you know, car, nothing like them.
You can get a small car and a bicycle in there, it'd be comfortable.
It's not even feasible to do.
well, I do remember when I was little growing up, and I'm sure there's others in this room that can remember the same thing. This is what I was told. The only time you need to worry about your property line is when you do not get along with your neighbor. You and that neighbor over there to the side of you, you folks can whip out your grill, kick back, enjoy 4th of July. But just as soon as it's sold, it don't matter that you put that swing across there for everybody to sit over there and enjoy some lemonade. That's when it's gonna be a game changer.
I hear what you're saying, man. I know it's going, you know, nothing's forever. But, nobody gets a variance. All this property is 10 foot. Everything, all houses are sitting off property line at 10 foot.
Well, okay, so now this board right here has no authority. We just make recommendations to the county commissioners. Now, we're gonna make a recommendation to them, and they may listen to the minutes and say, well, you know what, this right here's what we need to do, and they may go with it. And they may say, well, y'all, we don't agree with you. We're gonna do something different. They have that authority. Do what now? Do we need to turn his opinion on this? Well, you can ask him.
Mr. Scott,
Yes, sir.
can you give us a good legal definition?
Depends on what it is. What are we looking for?
Well, I don't have no speeding tickets, so we ain't got to worry about that, okay? The importance of the setbacks off those property lines. Give me your personal legal opinion.
The importance of the setbacks and why they're there.
Yes, sir. I want a legal explanation here.
To provide space to, for the homeowner, property owner, and the neighbors to ensure that there is a buffer zone, that there is not an encroachment on the line that could eventually slip over one way or another. Also, here in Raleigh, we have some houses that have the setbacks as close as possible to the line for fire purposes, to avoid an apartment fire. But there's still a minimum amount between the two homes to ensure that one does not catch on fire if the neighbor does, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Is this a recent photo or recent map?
2020, December 2020.
What is this, Mr. Denman? This is the front corner. You know what that stretch that?
Bench or something. This is a roses right there.
So this looks like maybe the hurricane tank.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And what, so we don't know what this is.
I think it's a bench. It's no structure. It's got to be a bench.
Bench.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, what that little white thing up in the front, is that?
That's my propane as well.
Up here on the, it's on your bottom of your screen, on the
Right here.
bottom.
Oh, that's just
On the other
something.
side of the line. What is that? Is that like a, you mentioned it may be a bench,
Yes,
but
yeah.
is that a?
Yeah, what's that?
If it's a bench, I mean, it's wider than the propane tank.
Yeah, that's the propane tank at the back of that property
Right.
right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say
But so whatever that, I mean, I was just curious if it was utilities or if it was like, what is that? I mean, if it was something permanent in nature that needed, or that would need to be relocated. If it was something that needed a certain setback off of structures or,
See if I can find.
I was just curious if you knew.
I've never even seen it, so it can't be that big.
Sorry, I was just curious.
I think it's a great question.
I'm gonna look back on some old errors and see if there's something that changed too.
It's not there.
That's all that picture.
Yeah, August 2007.
Okay,
Sometime between 2018 and 2020 is when that was put in, because 2018 arrows don't show.
thank you.
First blush, when I first saw the package, first thing that came to it's 3 feet. That's a lot to ask for off a setback for a variance. Usually 6 inches or 4 inches or whatever. Then my next thought was exactly what Sandy said, was does this subdivision have a restricted covenants and a homeowner association? One owner next door wouldn't constitute that vote. So it would probably need to go towards a homeowner association and have one of their formal meetings and request for that very.
Okay, I'm with you, but I mean, there's a whole lot of older subdivisions. And it's like Taylor was saying, that those
Those covenants were written in
were
1975.
1975, there's a good possibility there's not even a homeowner association there anyway.
Well, and then, but these particular ones, when Tanya pulled them up, the setbacks, it does not specify specific setbacks like they do in this day and time. It just literally says county code. So,
Okay.
they're old enough that they don't actually stipulate.
All set to make a 2-car garage work, 2 single doors, all set that back side a little bit. 27 foot's pretty deep for a garage too.
Well, I wish my garage was longer than what it is. I'll tell you that straight up right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm in between my bumper hitting one wall and my reach hitch in there. I mean, I'm threading it every time I pull in. So if my garage was a foot longer, I'd be happy. I wouldn't have to worry about it.
I mean, literally, you could offset that second bay back far enough to get 10 feet on that front corner. Still have a nice garage.
How far would you have to, do you know what the measurements?
That's 3 foot. 'Cause
How far you would have to drop that back to achieve that 10 feet?
I do know this to be, I do know this because I was part of the project. There was a house built down at Taylor Ridge subdivision, south side of the county. And it's got the offset garage, and I'm not planning your garage for you. Please don't think I am. I'm just throwing you a suggestion of what I literally witnessed with my own 2 eyes. I seen a garage, it was like that. The garage was not just square. It had an offset in the front. And that house, that house hit the market. I want to say the asking price on that house is somewhere around $495. It stayed on the market less than a week. And that house was not finished when it hit the market. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm with you. Me and garages get along just fine. But in this particular case, 3 foot, a 3 foot variance is a 30% variance. This is 30%, period. That's what it is. It's 30%. To get a 30% variance on something like this, it would probably be more feasible, practical, and logical to either slide that garage to the back because you got 11 foot to play with on your septic lines. Slide it back, offset the front, do something to get that 10 foot, because I promise you, it may not happen while it's being built. It may not happen year after next when you done bought your new lawnmower. But I promise you, eventually you're gonna have to access your backyard by that side. And that 3 foot will prevent you from getting back there or totally destroy your yard in the process of getting back there. That can happen.
Not, I think your engineer letter was talking about dropping the garage back and having to lose a window that might have impact.
No, that was.
So put it on the other side?
side.
Okay,
And, does have to go, also lose all the closets, a small house.
okay.
And lose, when it comes to the master bedroom and the.
It says the design that you could utilize the existing house wall as the interior wall of the garage, and you could still do that even if you drop back that outside bay. And done right, I think, I don't know that it would be that much more costly. And it's gonna save you a lot of headache when you get ready to sell or your neighbor gets ready to sell. That'd be my 2 cents. I would have a hard time doing a 3 foot variance if we didn't approve a 2-inch variance. And that's.
What are this one sentence talks about the grade, a large drop in grade in the backyard, making moving the garage further back impractical.
That's on that side.
Is that be on the right-hand side facing?
That's where it's at, where I wrote it in now, because I have a pad, a concrete pad there, patio. And it goes, and it drops down, it's just a drop. And if you're talking about pushing it back 3 foot or 4 foot, even 5 foot, you'll have to build out this. You know, it's just have a setting area there. It's gonna take away, it's gonna look.
We're talking about there, it's something like this, where you have your existing 27 feet and you would go out with your main garage at that 7 foot span. And I get it, because he's taking the span all the way out. It's gonna be practical to build that, but offset the front to whatever it needs to be. And you'll just have a little offset gable. So you'll have a little bit of siding on that front. It's probably your most practical way to go. Something like that. Great.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was suggesting.
Then you going back to your architect and figure that out. So part of your garage will be the full depth that you want. Part of it. But that's probably what it's
I
gonna be.
was thinking he was talking about set just the whole thing.
No, I wouldn't do that. because
Because
you have-
that, but
Right, well, yeah, I wouldn't do that because of your gable end. I mean, you can see when your gable end comes out there. And that's what he's wanting to do. He's really extending that peak out there. And what'll happen is that peak will continue to go. And then this will just be a smaller span on the offset part.
sit back further.
That's correct. That's right. Just need to talk to your architect about offsetting that second part. You'll have 2 garage doors rather than 1. But to get on that property, I think that's the only way to go.
Improve on it, so.
Serve you well in the long run, I promise.
Okay,
All right.
we're done.
Is
Thank you so much.
does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Dearborn?
I know too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dearborn.
Now, are we all in a kind of a consent agreement here? Do we need to take some official action
We
on
need
this?
an official action or recommendation.
All right. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move that the application for a waiver of setback from 10 to 7 feet be denied.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries, Ms. Tanya.
All right.
What else do you have, Ms. Tanya?
Well, I've got lots of interesting things for y'all tonight. So the next thing that we have on the agenda is the Unified Development Ordinance text amendments for that. Primarily, we're gonna look at the manufactured home / RV travel trailer park ordinance. Before I get too deep in that though, I want to show y'all just a couple of the other sections that we're proposing minor amendments to. One is gonna be section 6.1 or 6.12, I guess is what we're gonna call that. That is the junk car ordinance. When we wrote this, we put in some language from our junk car ordinance we already had. Living through that, we've had that since June. We realized that we probably need additional language in what we actually put in. So we put in the rest of the language from that ordinance, just so that we have a good enough teeth that we can actually enforce junk car issues in the county. And in doing that, like I said, it's 6.12. And when you get there, that's page 115, if you just want to page numbers. Couple of things. Patrick's been great and he's looked at, these are old ordinances we're bringing in and there's new regulations even coming down on December 1st we have to be in compliance with. So 6.12.2 application section under C, he has put a comment on the administrator has the right language in there. He is recommending that we change that to the administrator may enter on any premises within the county's ordinance making jurisdiction by any lawful means at any reasonable hour to determine if any vehicles are abandoned, junk, and or nuisance motor vehicles. Just for clarification on what that definition means. And then for F, he said this provision is confusing, almost leads you to believe that nobody can take their own vehicle, private vehicles off of property. He's not seeing where this is going to serve the county very well, so we're proposing to go ahead and remove F out of that section. To better serve us. And then you go back to the subdivision section of our ordinance. Let me give you a page number on that. That is page 81. To get you there. Now, this is where people are dividing land all the time and all this. Part of what the county's ordinance says, let me figure out what page we're under. On page 84. We have final plat requirements. One number B under that is recordation. Says all approved plats shall be recorded with the Alamance County Register of Deeds. This is true. The rest of it reads, this process shall be as follows. The subdivision administrator shall collect the required Register of Deeds fees. The administrator shall then deliver the signed plat to the Register of Deeds for recording. After recording, the administrator shall contact the developer and or surveyor with the recorded plat, book and page number. I think that served well when people were hand-drawn plats. With that language, we record once a week. We record on Fridays for all plats that come in during the week for signatures. So Alamance County doesn't have real estate exchanges and closings of new properties until we record these plats. So nobody does any closings until Friday when we record. So what we're anticipating doing is striking this. There's no reason for us to have to do that now. Most all surveyors are drawn on computer now. We keep a copy of what we actually sign. So if somehow it changes between the time it leaves our office and gets to the Register of Deeds, Register of Deeds generally catches that because it's going to be something hand drawn on computer drawing. So it looks really odd. But we're proposing to take that out so that anybody can record any day of the week. It takes us out of the picture. We're not taking Register of Deeds fees. We can sign them and they can take them when they need to rather than we only do it on Fridays. So that's what we're proposing in the subdivision section of the ordinance. Yes, sir.
Before we get into this too deep, do you think it would be recommended that the three other gentlemen that we have signed up to speaks their piece before you get in too deep?
Well, yes, so the next section is about the RV park, so sure.
Do you think that's a good idea?
That's absolutely, if the board wishes that, I'm very open to that.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Mr. Prevett. Care to say anything, sir?
I'm just here to hear what we've come up with.
Okay. Mr. Philip Morgan,
That's where I'm at.
Mr. Matt Morgan.
Here to listen.
All right, fair enough. We got that part covered, Miss Tanya.
Well, they might want to say something later, but we'll hold on to that for now. Okay, so if you go to page 69, that's where our manufactured home park ordinance sits. Our proposal is to change the title to that to say manufactured home and recreational vehicle / travel trailer parks. We're proposing a lot size, and these only RVs are allowed in these parks for all intents and purposes, a 2,500 square foot lot size. That I've highlighted the section talking about the watersheds. We don't have any control over watersheds as they're issued to us by the state, so we still have to follow those guidelines regardless. We've stricken some of the language about it just in manufactured home parks where it says spaces within. We now say parks, and Patrick's recommended we put in there to say manufactured parks and recreational vehicles, so we're very clear. So we'll add that language in, but are non-transferable. They're not like a subdivision lot. You can't sell them off. And then for the page 70 road standards, you'll see we struck manufactured home and we left parks. So we're gonna go back and add manufactured home / RV parks and make it a 60-foot clear way. That's because as fire code has changed in our regular subdivisions, they're requiring a 60-foot road right of way, because what used to be was a 20-foot travel surface is now a 26-foot travel surface. And to get your drainage and everything off the roads, 60 foot is what DOT's requiring now to get that 26 foot of travel way. So we're recommending making that change so we're in compliance with that. Space frontage for recreational vehicles, we put in there each designated recreational vehicle space shall have a minimum width of 40 feet of frontage on the travel way, which is right now it's 100 foot for manufactured homes, but because we shrunk that lot size from 30,000 to 2,500, 100 foot seemed a bit large. And our subcommittee, which I think you all remember, but Lee, Rodney, and Sandy were on the subcommittee. We evaluated other ordinances throughout the state.
Hey.
No counties right around us actually allow this, so we couldn't use theirs. We went to Rutherford County, Duplin County. There was 4 of them that we looked at, but we put a lot of language from mainly Duplin County and Rutherford to get to where we are. And what seems to have worked for them, kind of massage that to see about it working for Alamance County. So that's where most of these numbers have come up from. Parking requirements, we're still requiring 2 parking places. One is required to be at the RV site. One can be in an overflow parking area. And we modified the language for 4 inches of what used to be gravel is what we put, but now it's 4 inches of ABC aggregate base coarse stone. So we're very clear on what kind of material we want down there. When you get down to E, the setbacks, following setbacks are established for units within RV parks. There shall be a minimum distance of 15 feet between structures on adjacent lots. The second part, parks shall have a minimum 50-foot setback along all property lines. That would be the exterior. The required 30-foot landscape buffer is allowed within the setback requirement. All spaces developed adjacent to public right-of-way shall be set back a minimum 40 feet from the right-of-way. A 30-foot landscape buffer shall be required along exterior property lines. Buffers are intended to protect adjoining land uses from the noise, dust, lights, threats of privacy, and aesthetic impacts of more intense land uses. Any portion of the park boundary which is both within 1,000 feet and visible from any schools, churches, or residences other than the park owner shall be screened from view with a buffer strip as defined by this ordinance. And let's see here, any park with RVs or manufactured homes located within 50 feet of public right of way shall be screened from view with public road with a buffer as defined by this ordinance. And then you'll see where we thought, where you're up against others and residential use. Any park with more than 5 RVs or manufactured homes adjacent to a public road right of way that do not have direct individual driveway access to public road shall be buffered from view from the road by a buffer defined by this ordinance. The buffer requirement may be satisfied by screen fence as defined by this ordinance. The buffer requirement may also be satisfied by existing natural vegetation meeting the intent of this ordinance, provided the natural vegetation is owned by the park owner, so they can't borrow some lot in the front and call that good. They don't have control over that. And then persons operating parks shall utilize good husbandry techniques with regard to plant materials, including but not limited to proper planting at 8 foot on center, double row, staggered plantings, mulching, fertilization, pruning, and otherwise proper maintenance to ensure a healthy, uniform, continuous, solid vegetative screen as soon after planting as possible. Then we have the separation requirement of the ordinance is intended to protect property values, preserve the character and integrity of the county, and to promote the health, safety, and welfare of county residents. No park may be located within 1,000 feet in any direction of the existing mobile home or RV park, community park shared by community, school, church, or residents, except for the residents of the owner of the park. And then the next signage, we struck some of this manufactured home. We'll put manufactured / RV park for signage, so that signage stuff applies to both. Water sewage disposal, we struck that so we can go back and add in both RVs and manufactured home parks must have this water sewer disposal piece on page 73. And then when you get down to number J, RV travel trailer park exception, one space may be used for a manufactured home for an administrator of the park, with space meeting the minimum requirements required in a manufactured home park requirements. So if somebody has an RV park, you can only put RVs in the RV parks, excluding one space. And if you're going to have that space, it has to meet that 30,000 square foot minimum, because you put an actual mobile home in there, not an RV, so it needs to be a bigger spot, is what that's reading. Approval and permitting, this is a part y'all have put in some of our other ordinances. Approvals and permits issued under this section are valid for a period of 2 years and shall automatically expire unless renewed. A permit renewal is required for each park. Should a permit expire for a park, the owner will apply for a new permit under current ordinance at that time. So if the ordinance is updated, more restrictive, whatever, they'd have to come in and get that new permit and comply with the new regulations. That requires us to get a site visit. It also says proof of continued compliance with all requirements of this ordinance and maintenance are required. So we check out the landscaping and everything. If the permanent location has been the subject of 2 or more enforcement actions within the renewal period, then the planning director at their discretion may require board approval. So it will come back to you all to make a decision to renew. If we've had a couple issues out there, y'all get to make that determination. And then we go through, there's the site plan requirements. We struck some of those and just added the RV park piece. It's not a long ordinance. It's not as involved as some other ordinances, but it's gone through subcommittee. We've met every Wednesday since the last meeting, and even right before the last meeting. Subcommittee did review, like I said, several ordinances across the state to try to get us to where we would feel good and feel like we've got enough language in here to protect what we're here to protect. And when you go all the way back to the definitions, we define RV.
Have the definitions anywhere, Taylor?
But we'll define RV back there. We really took the language out of the manufactured home definition, struck that and put that in as the RVs. And then we've got RV park, and manufactured home park and RV park are now defined that you can only put manufactured homes in manufactured home parks. You can only put RVs in RV parks. There's no mix and match. There's no 2 for 1. You got to do one or the other. Right now, you can mix and match. Their hookup's a little bit different, but that's a matter of getting an electrician out there and sometimes a plumber, and that's about all you have to do to mix and match. So there you go. I put in the word not to be considered a manufactured home, so that fixes our manufactured home park standards. And then we read only manufactured homes are allowed in these parks. And then we go down to RVs and it's flip-flop the other way. We pulled some language from some of these other ordinances on the square footage piece and all that, having a maximum, because you got to remember in these RV parks, RV travel trailer definition can be tiny homes because these things come in on wheels too. So these can get pretty large. That's not really our intent as subcommittee looked at. So we maximize at 400 square feet. On a 2,500 square foot lot, that's plenty.
For an RV, the
Yes.
square footage of that
Yeah,
RV.
just for the RV park stuff. But when you look at a 2,500 square foot lot, then you think about awning and blah, 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 and you got a couple cars and everything just starts adding up. And you still want to keep these distances and make this not look like you're just stacking there kind of thing. It definitely benefits ones that are looking to do these RV parks. It shrinks that lot size, set from 30,000 to 2,500. But with that, we're bargaining, I guess. We're putting some landscaping in. We're still requiring parking. We're widening some roads out to where, I mean, you pull in some of these big campers and RVs, you need the space to get them turned around and back in and stuff, so that makes that 60-foot wide a little more useful, I guess, because it's gonna be a 26-foot wide travel surface when the fire marshal gets done reviewing it. Any questions for staff?
Yes, ma'am.
It's on my way out. Okay.
Not quite. The part in there about the 1,000-foot setback,
From the churches, yes.
okay, I get it with the churches, neighboring houses, mobile home parks, all this other stuff. 1,000 linear foot in a situation like that right there is gonna eat up a whole lot of real estate.
We did do some buffers on that during our meeting to see what 1,000-foot looked like on some existing homes. Just FYI, we
Is that setback or is that a land space?
1,000 feet in any direction from the existing manufactured home park, community park, or school, or church, or residence other than
So it's probably more of a land spacing issue, right? Is what you're really referring to?
separation requirement, yeah. You gotta be away from them. And when we talk about that, we did talk about where we're gonna measure from is that exterior property line. We don't have the, like, operation area, or anything like that, like we've used in some of our other ordinances. We're literally talking against the property line, because that's where setbacks are.
That's, yeah, that's not the only thing you have solid.
Is that from the street as well?
This is from other uses, these churches and everything. We're gonna measure, well, part of that probably we need to define where we're gonna measure to. We're measuring to the church itself or to the property line of what the church owns. That would probably need to figure out exactly how we want to measure that.
1,000 feet on parts on an adult. That's on up there with like adult uses, street clubs.
Let's see where it
So,
goes.
that spring, I'm sorry for picking up terms, but I mean, if that is residential application, and I believe on adult uses such as strip clubs.
That right there, I can't do it my own RV park.
1,000 feet, that seems to be a little strong.
I'm not discluding anybody, but I'm gonna reach out to a couple of members. Mr. Isley?
Yes.
Mr. Field. We worked on that Hideout ordinance, and I'm not trying to I'm not stirring up a hornet's nest. We worked on that Hideout ordinance a couple of years ago. And there are industries in there. We're not naming any specifically. But just from the best of your recollection, what was some of the spacing requirements there?
You probably had that pulled up there somewhere, don't you?
So they're right. Adult entertainment is be located within 1,000 feet of another building, premises, structure, or facility that contains an adult establishment. So we're equalizing adult establishments in RV parks. Give me just a minute, I'll pull up the high stuff, okay?
One was zero. Class ones were zero, land space. All right.
Okay,
Class twos were the 150.
okay.
It only went up to the class threes.
Uh-huh.
That went up to, I think, 1,200.
So we went from 4 classifications to 3, if my memory serves me correct.
1, 2, 3, yeah. Your
Okay,
land use spacing on class 2 is 150 feet. Your land use on 3 is 1,200.
Right.
all
And
right,
that's from
so,
property lines, is that correct?
Property line to a structure or house or store.
or industry,
Right.
okay,
Before it used to be from center of operation, it's hard to decide where was the center of operation. That's why we use property line.
I
In that
get you.
particular instance.
1,000 linear feet on a RV park is quite a bit excessive. That's just my opinion.
It seems like a lot.
It does. When you're talking about a class 2 in our Hideout ordinance is just what we say 150 feet. I mean, you've got a industry in that Hideout ordinance that's got a 150-foot setback, but for somebody to come bring in a pop-up and throw a couple of hot dogs on the grill, it's got to be 1,000 feet. I mean,
So your class 2s that get that 150 feet is resource extraction, automobile salvage and storage yards, and chemical manufacturing.
okay, I got you. We're gonna focus on the junkyards. So we can have a couple of Subarus out there that we're scrapping parts off of. It's 150 feet. But like I said, a pop-up that's gonna be there for a couple, 2 or 3 days, or at least until Sax Paul's got their little weekend festival over and done with, it's gotta be 1,000 feet.
Just to remind me, 'cause I know we looked at the measurements, but I don't really remember the length. How far would it be from the building there out 1,000 feet? We're looking at here at 1,000 feet. How far are we looking at from where we are here, looking out one east or west, north or south? How far are we
I
looking?
remember we looked at a map like that. Miss Taylor, can you
What
do
about
something
you
like
doing?
that from like the courthouse or something? Show us 1,000 feet.
Yeah, we pulled
Where
that
you
up
measure
and
from?
Yeah, I
then
just can't remember exactly how far it went.
it went down to Gilbert Street, I believe.
Is this your
Or
property?
That's a quarter mile.
So I have this
1,280
parcel.
feet a mile.
Yes, sir.
Not quite a quarter mile, but it's close.
Yeah.
No,
1320 is a
RV
quarter.
park city park.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Okay.
It's,
right there.
hey, it's a long way.
A
Yeah, so
1,000,
this buffer is 1,000 feet off of these property lines, this blue flashing. It's 1,000 feet
So-
either way.
So I own this, and this,
These
almost
three.
3. And this is a mobile home park right on my property line, right beside me.
so when you go 1,000 feet, I mean, that's basically,
Up to the road.
that's more than a road,
Yeah,
because
that's across-
that shaded
across
area is
the-
1,000 feet right there.
Put a line on there. Make sure that-
That
This
is, that
is
red
1,000.
line on the outside and all
This
that
is
pink is in that 1,000.
All that red line.
Where did the 1,000-foot language come from?
1,000 foot wide.
Didn't we pull that out of some of them other ordinances?
Don't remind me of these, I bought these two. It's Rutherford.
So what's the blues flashing?
The
Property
blue is the
line.
property lines that we're buffering, and then the red is 1,000 feet outside of all of that blue.
Duplin County.
That's down.
And so you have to
that's-
understand, we don't have anybody around us that we can get this because they don't allow these things. So we reached to wherever we could find the state. They actually wrote this in 2002, but they're still using it.
Have y'all looked at Lebanon city ordinances? Lebanon city is.
We don't generally look at city Crystal County. But, because they're gonna allow some smaller, they have city water, city sewer, it sets up really
We
different.
have to put in public water and community systems also, so.
Some of them do that, yeah. And some leave them on their sites, but for RVs, they're not gonna get that on their site. But that's where y'all get from, is Duplin County.
There's mobile home parks and RVs are residential application. That should fall in the same group. I was thinking it'd be a 10-foot setback.
That's why we're here, might have the discussion.
Yeah, that's an excessive passage.
That puts you right.
Can't see the case of stuff, right? So it shouldn't be a thing.
All right, so Ms. Tanya has presented this revised RV manufacturers park ordinance. At this time, I'd like for the planning board member to discuss it.
Is it ready for prime time to vote on it? I don't know.
No, we ain't
Let's
got,
talk about it.
we ain't got to vote. Let's talk about it because I mean, I fully understand the subcommittee did their due diligence. They jumped in, they done their job, and that's great. But 1,000-foot setback off that property line is, to me, 1,000 foot is extremely excessive. That's my thoughts. Outside that, I'd like for everybody else to jump in and, speak to piece.
I believe it is too. And you do those larger land spacings like the category 3, or if it's an adult establishment, because you're really protecting, trying to protect the public from something, right? In this particular case, I don't think you're really having to try to protect the public or from an RV park. So I mean, you could put it in 150-foot land spacing, or probably even a 0 land spacing, as far as that's concerned. Maybe there's somewhere in between.
Well, the neighbors obviously need to be taken into consideration.
Right.
The neighbors do not need to be just thrown out. I get that. But I mean, you know, at 1,000 linear feet, you just seen the map, Taylor put it up there. I mean, that's pretty much classifying an RV / manufactured park as invasive as a class 3. And I mean, everybody has opinions, and that's great. But every time I've ever been to an RV park, I mean, I'm gonna clean this up, okay? You're not gonna be in a situation where there's a bunch of whipping it up and hooping and hollering. Most cases, you're gonna have somebody sitting out there in a chair under their awning with a little charcoal grill that's not no bigger than a piece of paper. They might be sitting there drinking water. They might even have something in the red Solo cup. I don't know. But there is no carefree, just road warrior type mentality. You know, you got people that are vacationing and that's what they do. So 1,000 foot, to me, I don't care for it. That's just my thoughts. Anyhow.
You think, Sandy, you were on the subject?
Can someone give me a clear definition of clearway? When you say a 60-foot clearway.
That would be the width of the road itself. We're gonna say from ditch to ditch.
Yeah,
That
that's
was to match
that's
fire
the
code.
center line, 30 feet both ways, and that's the shoulder of the road and the
Okay, you
ditch.
can't do anything, can't even park a car in that.
That's not true.
No, that's not true.
You can park a car in it, but in other words, if it comes time for emergency responders, we're talking fire trucks, ambulances, things of that nature, that roadway has got to be, how wide does somebody say, well, it's got to be
We got
26
26 feet of gravel.
the 26, the has to be 26 foot wide of gravel. Outside that, you can sow it down in grass and that's fine. But the clearway has got to be 60 foot wide. That's basically a deed. In subdivision, in the subdivision world, that's a deeded right of way.
But I got an exception from the fire department, which fire chief, that I could go 20 foot. There's others in the county that aren't even 12 foot. But I got an exception that if I put signs up that said no parking on the street, that they would go with 20 foot wide. They first told me 26 foot when I discussed it with them. That's what I was able to get. I mean, 20-foot wide road is pretty good width road. If it's one, I'm talking about one-way road.
Yeah.
So that was
So
another
these are
thing.
gonna be 2 ways. These are expected to be coming in and out. This is your main road coming in and out. We have the small roads that come off of it that have different definitions, but these are their main.
Yeah, this is your main driveway going in and out of the park.
That's what I'm talking about.
How's it?
You're talking about the road
How
that
can
goes
it
all
be,
through the park.
how can it be a one-way road?
Because it goes in on this drive and goes out the other side.
Big loop.
It's a loop.
That's a special situation, as he said. Standard 35 for our adopted ordinances for fire code is 26 foot. But yeah, he's got a different connection. I want to also bring, this applies to the whole ordinance, but make sure that I bring this up to y'all before it gets lost. Page 30, there's criminal penalties, and there's a new reference other than specifically excluded from criminal punishment under 153A-123. That's the stuff that's coming into effect as of December 1st. The laws will change a little bit. So when we move forward with anything, we'll do to make sure we include that. The lawyer added that into it, so we'll be compliant.
I don't quite think I got that.
That's in your other.
Right there, she's got it up for
Okay,
you.
I got you.
It's up there.
Just one little sentence, but to keep us in compliance is what we would have to do in unit 4.
The whole thing about the clearway thing though, was when you got a 20-foot or 26-foot wide road, whatever. The way people park in RV park, their campers pull back off the road, probably 20, 25 feet. And the parking spaces are right at the camper, 1 or 2 or whatever. So it makes that lot with a 60-foot clearway, it makes that lot size 30 foot deep. And what it really needs to be for that camper and 2 vehicles. You know, when any RV park that I've ever been in. And that's exactly what you're gonna see. You're not gonna see a 60-foot clearway and a 20-foot, 6-foot wide road. And it's just not feasible to build a campground that way. And I'm just, we went through this pretty quick. That's just two of the things. That was 1,000-foot setback that just popped out at me just like that.
No, we're talking about two different roads here. The main road, then there's little side streets that go off of it that are different. Is that correct?
Right.
Well, mine don't have side streets.
So your sites are right off the main road and
Right.
it's just an in and out.
It's one,
Absolutely.
way.
it's one main road and that's it.
There's a clearway and there's
Travel.
travel way. Scott Road makes itself the existing language for the clearways and driveways and stuff that we currently have in the manufactured home ordinance. We didn't touch that. About cul-de-sacs and how long the roads can be and things like that. We really just looked at that clearway, the 60-foot, because it has become a standard in development because of mainly fire code, and that's already been adopted by the county. So we just wanted this ordinance to match so you didn't have conflict from regulations. Now, there's still language in here about the waivers. Y'all have seen those waivers from manufactured home parks before. If there's some kind of extenuating circumstance, which has been proven through terrains and things, that 60-foot is impractical, they can come to the boards and ask for that. That's still out there. That doesn't take that availability away.
But I think you'd like to have it where it's feasible to start with. Nobody have to come and ask for variances and stuff. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn on this.
Good points, thank you.
And camping is becoming a big thing. Big. Manufacturers are building 30% more campers than they ever have. You can't even get a campsite in the summer unless you book way ahead. So it's something that's coming. There's going to be people building RV parks.
Well,
People
that's-
spending money too.
Yeah.
We get people coming into us and ours, they'll stay there for a couple months and buy a house in the county, what you're doing. Some of them, not a.
I got mine in Myrtle Beach right now, but it's called Carolina Pines. This summer, they were renting Sonics for $220 a night. People were paying that kind of money for them. Now, those were the people that last minute, they got some kind of way, just like motels do, the way they charge, they rent the rooms or whatever, more demand, the price goes up. But there were people paying $220, $230 a night for Sonics. I mean, it's, people are gonna pay it, it's there, they're gonna. So I would like to see it get done right to start with, because it's gonna be, it's coming, you know, people don't have, builders don't have to come back to you guys and ask for variances, and you don't want people to have to come to you all the time and ask for variances. And I say all the time, a couple times a year, whatever it's gonna be. But it needs to be done in a feasible way that a guy can afford to build a campground.
So what would be your suggestion on the clearway? Like in this particular situation that you have the one where you're gonna loop it, so what would your suggestion be?
Well, for example, if I've got a 20-foot wide road and I got 24 feet, well, that is 64 feet, isn't it?
64.
But I've got cars parked on both sides of that 20 foot. They're out of the road. So I don't know how you look at clearway. You say you can't park cars in it? Does that have to be from the?
Well, clearway and travel way is two different things. Cars. Rod hit me with this, cars cannot be parked in the travel way, but they can be parked in the clearway. Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
Okay,
So what is the what is the, did pick up on the distance of it.
the travel way is a minimum of 26 feet.
Okay, that's 26, okay.
Okay, so
That's the gravel road.
that is the gravel, from edge of gravel to edge of gravel, 26 feet. All right,
That's a two-way street.
Right, and that's what I got an exception for, because I've got a one-way, and they don't, if I put signs up, then I can do it.
at 20 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, All right, well, then I'm assuming that part is covered, but we still have to and I'm gonna stop at this, 1,000-foot setback.
Yeah, that's probably, now, looking at that 1,000-foot setback here, now, let's go through that.
All right, what are we
List out.
measuring from where? What, because you got over on this other page, a 50-foot setback on all the property lines.
I'm with you there, but now the map that Taylor put up just a little bit ago on the part down on the Swepsack Road, it showed a 1,000-foot setback from the property line of the property that the park is gonna be located on. And that took up a good portion.
So you
of
got
that
to go
area.
from the property line in 1,000 feet before you can start building.
Out 1,000.
No. Read on page 71 is where that actually is.
Don't get, it's not a setback.
It's not a
more
setback.
Landscape.
It's the distance from one point to this other point. So it's not setback from the property line. Let me read just that one sentence. Any portion of any park boundary which is both within 1,000 feet and is visible from any schools, churches, or residences other than the park owner shall be screened from view with a buffer strip. So it's not saying you can't build it. It's saying if either both of those, not one or the other, but both are in effect, you gotta put a buffer.
I think you need to go to 72. Page 72.
Yeah, 72 is where it says 1,000 feet.
Okay, well, so there's two pages of 1,000 feet.
But this is the one you did say we needed to redefine anyway, because we didn't clarify where we were measuring that 1,000 feet.
Yeah, that's
So
what.
My buffer was just if we were to define that as from the property line.
Right.
What's
So
the last one?
basically on land spacing, what we came up with before was from the property line out. Now, probably what would be a real heartburn for these guys would be a residence. That means any house, 1,000 foot from any house, okay? I can see maybe a park, school, church, all right, but the word residence in there, well, that's just gonna take up everything else, right? That's everybody. Maybe we adjust that to 150 foot for a residence or some kind of like land spacing that way. But as far as if it's a school or a church, okay, yeah, it's 1,000 foot. I don't know. I'm just, throwing out some.
But it also says in there, from an existing manufactured home or RV park.
Right. Maybe those.
Well, see,
be
my
as
thought
complicated
is,
as you want or
if
not.
you've already got an RV park there
Or a mobile home
or
park.
a mobile home park there, then what's wrong with having another one
That's right.
Right.
there?
That's right.
They're all in the same neighborhood. Rather than taking it somewhere else that there's not any
Yeah,
and putting it in there, that doesn't seem sensible to me.
that's right.
Well, I believe when we was talking about this a little while ago, it was kind of sort of like, with this new ordinance, that mobile homes and RVs could coexist in the same area. Where before it was mobile homes only, RVs only. And now,
No.
Yeah, the other way
No, that,
around.
you had the other way
We
around.
had them coexisting.
Before
initially,
they were in
now
the
we're
same
separating
park.
them.
Now we're trying to get them in two separate parks.
Two separate entities.
So they're not mixed.
So why would you not let them coexist?
Well, I'm
Lots
talking about
of
in the
them do.
same park.
That's what I'm saying.
same track of land.
I've got a tract of land that's got 4 mobile homes on it. And my plan is, the plan I'm drawing up is to eliminate those over time. But that might not be done in 2 years. I don't know.
Your standards are very different. That's why they need to be separate.
Yeah.
Okay.
One's more of a
got
permanent
you, I got you, I
residence
got
and
you.
one's a travel trailer.
Right.
They're just not
But
the
it's-
same thing.
What if it's existing already?
As it says in there for the grandfather, you can keep operating what is there as it's always been, just as it is. If you decide to make
Okay.
any changes, all has to come into compliance. We have not recommended a change on that one.
Okay.
So as long as they stay as they are.
Yeah.
can
you
continue
gotta
to
know one
operate
part's been there
without-
Forever, it can stay there forever. You gotta make any changes, they get to come under this new order.
What about the expiring permit? A bunch of these folks, I'm probably one of them that might look over calling the planning department about this. And then, oh God, you're gonna have to close it up. Gotta bring it to the new. I don't have no problem with the inspecting part, so they can come out and mine anytime they want to. I thought they did. I got a little note from Ms. Tanya one time before about the trash.
I've seen a lot of those. We've done that in our other ordinances because the county wants to keep things 5 years down the road. Some mobile home parks will meet our requirements at the beginning, and 5 years down the road, it's a mess. It's a disaster. It looks nothing like it's supposed to.
But
So it's on the owner's onus. If you want to operate in the county, every couple of years, you got to come back and tell us, everything's good, come look at me. I want to keep operating here. If you don't want to keep operating, you don't renew your permit and everything's good. But we put that in all the most recent ordinances because of the issues we've had over time.
So you're gonna start doing this with mobile home parks too, reading these rules? Because there's a lot of enforcement that needs to be
New,
done.
it can only apply to new ones. We cannot enforce anything new or grandfathered ones.
So it's okay for 50% of mobile home parks to have a 20-foot clearway? And now.
Again, anything is grandfathered is privilege under the way they came in. You can't ask owners to come back and change something just because we change rules. But if you're gonna come in new, there are a set of rules you have to meet. And that's for health, safety, public well-being, for fire, for building, for everything. That's why there's.
60-foot right away.
That's what I'm putting.
Okay.
That's cool.
I don't understand that. Okay, what is that? Is that a building permit? Or what is that? Is
No,
that
that would be the planning permit.
permit to operate or permit, what it?
When you bring this into us
Mhm.
and we review, you meet all our technical requirements, we hand you a permit from planning so that you can move to inspections and to environmental health and get your stuff straight. Planning, you'll have to call back in 2 years and say, I'm ready for my inspection, or a year in 10 months, or 11 months. I'm ready for my inspection. I want to renew my permit. They will issue that permit. Building and
But
environmental.
as
health.
far behind as everybody is, it took, environmental health almost 5 months to get my stuff laid out.
Don't know what to say about that, but environmental health wouldn't be a part of it. This is straight planning comes back out. Everybody else.
Well, I know, but if.
We respond. Our generally is within that same week or the beginning of the next week, so we're not that far behind.
Right, call it in, then she has it on the docket, whether it takes her 3 weeks to get there or 2 days, but it's still.
You've done your
call
part.
it in.
You met the
Right,
requirement.
that's right.
Mhm.
I mean,
All right.
then I
But I've got, what I've got is 2 years. Once I get approved, I got 2 years to go my part. Is that what it's saying? Without the extension.
I mean, once you
A
get
real
approved,
fine.
you have, what is it, it's 2 years?
Well, 2 years is what's being proposed, you know,
Right,
it's-
and then 2 years, every 2 years after that, you just get a reinspection just to make sure you're in compliance.
Mhm.
Doesn't have to be.
Oh, you have to keep doing it?
yes.
Oh, okay.
With reinspection, I don't have a problem with it, but it should be about like fire department. Fire department will inspect my office building, that's up to them. And we run a clean place. I'm not worried about them inspecting. But you know, to get down where they're gonna cancel the permit, I got one part, people offering me $8 to $10 million for it. If I slipped up for a month, because I was on vacation. I mean, they were huge, but can't permit.
Ain't never had no 10 million on vacation.
That could be a costly mistake for somebody.
Yeah, well, I think the reason they started putting that on for the owners to call in was because at the time, we had a one-person planning department, now we got a two-person planning department. And, you know, it's just, it's tough to have,
We need to realist.
now she's got the building department too. It's tough to keep them identical for mind you all, so it just puts the.
Well, it's the same in the building department. You pull a permit, it's on you to call your inspections in. Your permit dies after 6 months with no inspections. It's not the inspections department's responsibility to chase you down to say you didn't do what you're supposed to. You get an email when it expires, and that's the way. It's a responsibility of the property owner and all of it. So environmental, it's the same way. You get your permit, it expires after 5 years. We're not gonna call and tell you about to expire. It's on you, because that's your responsibility and your duty.
All right. Now, has everybody pretty much got their questions answered?
Y'all are still stuck on the 1,000
I
feet.
want
I
the
don't have.
1,000
a
feet.
That's the
conclusion.
rule of the 1,000 feet.
All right, so let's discuss the 1,000 feet. And, you know, let's do that.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
Have you already got this on the commissioner's agenda?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I was expecting to put this on in early December. part of this being compliance thing, we're supposed to be in compliance by the end of the year with that one statement of the criminal thing. This board gets to make that decision now. If they need to table this, just that's okay. This is a lot.
Well, we don't have an official motion to table. I'm gonna help the chairman out now. Go ahead. So I think, based on this discussion, the subcommittee needs to meet one more time and clarify the 1,000-foot and define it. And get these last little details worked out before we go to the commissioners with this. Now, on that enforcement thing, do you need some action on that? Or is that just for information?
Well, eventually we'll need action on that, and we can live with that while we're massaging the rest of this. That's fine. We can bring it all at one time.
What about the junk car?
Patrick, do I need to do something with that criminal part?
Criminal portion is just a clarification to match the new law. I believe that it is in compliance, arguably, the way that it is written. Just like I said, the amendment clarifying that the criminalization of the UDO is only for unsafe buildings. So it is still enforceable up until we amend to clarify.
We're not in trouble if we don't do that tonight.
Nope, we're fine.
Give up one more Wednesday night for this.
Yeah, I'd have one quick question while we have these three in the room, if that's okay.
Sure.
If I may.
Go right ahead.
So when you're looking at that 1,000 feet, what would ideally be something that you might want the subcommittee to? Because I think our intent was to make sure that we don't restrict anybody that wants to do the RV or the mobile home parks, but we also want to make sure that we're all living in harmony with our neighbors. And we just want to make sure that where you want to put that RV park or mobile home park, we're still going to protect those that are already own property around that. So what would that 1,000 feet look like if we massage that into a lesser number?
I would think a 10-foot setback from your property line would be reasonable.
We're not talking setback. The setbacks are established. That's
Okay.
Distance from an RV park to
Another dwelling
to a
on an
residence.
adjacent piece of property.
It has to be screened anyway, but I guess it's kind of a bad taste, putting you in the same classification as a mobile home park or an RV park as an adult. You got the same separation as an adult use. I think that's a bad precedent to start.
So what's
Because it is.
So what's a happy
residential.
medium, like a 500, like a 250? I was just kind of curious. We've got some dialogue to have at our next meeting.
What did you say it was for a class 2?
150.
150.
150.
Yeah, it's a similar business, but you are talking about residential applications and you're making a separation here similar to sex offenders and adult applications. I don't see that being.
Yeah.
I can understand.
That don't make any sense.
I can understand the schools
Yeah, we're not.
and the
gonna say
churches.
we're not.
I can understand those.
We're not
But
talking
now, there are RV parks that I have been to. I don't ride a bike and don't do a whole lot of walking. But if I had a skateboard, I could go right around the corners and I'm in a park. And I mean, point to be made, get your truck, go to Falls Lake, hit Rolling View Marina. It's right there. I mean, all of it, walking this bathhouse, beach area, park, the whole shebang. You don't even have to get out. You don't even have to leave the gate going in.
Right.
So,
I mean, if you got a dividing fence or whatever boundaries you'd have to divide the boundaries. I don't understand the difference in having a RV park there and a house to your next house.
Well, I just think as a property, you may have that property owner because of particularly in an RV park where you've got people coming and going. They may not want that. They may want some.
Even though it's divided with a.
But that's gonna be kind of
Yeah.
hard. No park within 1,000 feet of any residential.
I'm even saying 100.
Right,
feet.
no, I
start
think
looking
that
at
that's
this.
settled. I think that's settled. I think they're trying to find what will work. No, it doesn't work, right?
See the screen.
But I think this, so this is your property. but to your question, Sandy, so this park here is under separate ownership.
Mhm.
And then,
So that park is grandfathered in unless they change anything. So they can continue to operate just like they are, correct?
Right.
Okay.
but if he's looking at his property here, then he's constrained by having, like, we would look at this park within that buffer, yeah.
That park's
Yeah.
within that buffer.
Well, it is, and
Yes,
I'm
it
still
is, yeah.
confused about where's the 1,000 feet start and stop from you? For this,
From the property.
That
line.
definition hasn't been presented yet.
that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is,
We didn't get it, we don't have it.
So maybe this needs to be graduated.
See, my whole thing is this, even if you say 100 feet from my property line, I'm up into here.
No, you're going the other way.
That's a setback.
That's a setback. We're talking about from your property line out. From your property line out.
Okay, so I'm not understanding what.
setback is inside your property line. That means from your property, you gotta stay that far away from your line. That's a setback.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out the other thing.
It seems to be a bad clarification on that.
So, okay, so maybe this thing, you can go back and look at it as a graduate thing. Maybe if it's a mobile home park next to you or an RV park, maybe there's zero setback or land spacing, sorry, zero land spacing. But if you get to a house, maybe like the Sandy's Point, maybe it's within a residential neighborhood, it's 250. Maybe a church and a school, it is 1,000. I don't know, but there's probably something like that you can do as a graduating type thing. Because
Kind of have it in tiers.
Well, like if that was a subdivision of stick-built homes instead of a mobile home park, that would be a different
that's correct.
set of
I can see
circumstances.
that.
That's right.
You see what I mean?
I
That's
can see that.
what I'm saying.
So in the ordinance, you've established that there, for now, is a landscape buffer. And there's a 50-foot setback from the property line in before you can start your individual lots. Within that 50 foot, you got a 30-foot landscape buffer, 2 rows staggered, 8 foot apart.
Right.
Evergreen is what's being proposed. So now the 1,000 foot starts that outside property line, and you're 1,000 foot, where's the church, where's the next residence? So you've got a little bit of push inside those property lines before any development or any actual camper can start. And now you're looking outward. What we're concerned is the 1,000 foot, what's the intent of the 1,000 foot, and can it be served in a different way? Is the landscaping enough? Is it, like you said, we graduate things? Is it more offensive to a church, or is it more offensive to a single residence? That's what we're looking at. We do have this in high notes.
The graduated thought seems to be a pretty practical solution to what we're discussing here. Seems to answer some questions. Reducing it down, obviously, always within 1,000 foot for residential usage.
So if we're gonna kick it back, this is something we're gonna look at. Is there anything else the rest of the board would like the subcommittee to evaluate when they're kicking this back?
Can I get clarification on what you said about the setbacks prior to your comments on that last? You see, you're saying a 50-foot setback from the property line?
Yeah, you're going from your outside in 50 foot, and that's where your lots can start. Within that 50 foot, you've got a 30-foot landscape buffer, and that's 2 lines of trees. That's where everything starts, is at 50 foot inside. And then all your lots start happening.
I'm done. I won't be able to do. I've only got 10 acres.
So, I mean, the lot size is being reduced. It's a huge change in this ordinance that allows developers to come in and do more than what they've ever been able to do. Way more. At 30,000 down to 2,500, that's a huge increase in density.
So we've never, okay, so RV parks or under the mobile home ordinance.
They're all the same.
All the
You
same.
could do both.
So you
mix
had
them up.
30,000 square foot.
Yep.
So now you got 2,500 square foot
For RV parks.
or for
Only
an
for
RV
RV
park,
parks,
right? That's what we're talking about here.
You still gotta have a point of 30,000 feet, but you said. You
Well, an RV park usually has a, common septic system. You just have
But
to-
three.
Three per
on the
system,
septic system.
3 per system,
3 RVs.
per system. That's
So
that
they're
word.
not on the lot. You don't have to account for them on the lot. They're somewhere else.
Correct. And I mean,
They're under
you
the
can,
playground.
you can literally have a septic field and have picnic tables there and you're okay.
That's right.
I mean, I ain't talking about, a sand pit with a stage for concerts and stuff. I don't know what I'm talking about. But, state wastewater rules limits 3 RVs per septic system. That's the state. That has nothing to do with us at the county level. All the county's doing is enforcement. That's it.
I mean, so when that was originally permitted, that permitted under.
Mobile home.
Tanya maybe can address that. Simple Times, the first phase, the original permitting of that. But Bill asked how that worked out.
So that was when we didn't have an official planning director. We had an interim. They came and went on contractual basis. So environmental health and building inspections looked at that. Planning did not. So phase 2 is what we evaluate in Simple Times full compliance with the law.
Okay. All right. So what's everybody want to do?
I think Ronnie's
He's made a motion to.
Was it a motion or was it a
Well, it was a suggestion.
suggestion?
Are you willing to put another Wednesday night in this?
Absolutely. I appreciate the comments that's been shared here. I definitely want to get this thing right. So
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that it needs to go back to the subcommittee for just a little more.
Then I make a motion to send it back to subcommittee for some more massage.
Second.
There you go. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Who was the second? Is that Eric?
Eric.
Okay.
Ms. Tanya, what else do you have?
Well, we have some unofficial business. So typically at the end of the year, we get the boards, the HPC board, historic properties with the planning board and have a dinner. We haven't been able to do that because of Corona last year. We brought it to HPC and their meeting members that are wanting to do that this year. Now planning board would bring that to you. So we would do it typically sometime in December. Rodney's been gracious enough to coordinate that for us before, but depends on what this board would like to do. And it doesn't mean everybody has to participate. It's kind of just to see how many, if anyone will be interested.
Is that typically in lieu of a December meeting, or we're looking to meet in December this time?
We're going to do in lieu, but that just depends on how y'all feel about these ordinances, and if we want to push them off to January.
Well, what I remember in the past is we would have a December meeting. And either the week following, it would be before Christmas, of course. The week following, we would all meet up at a restaurant somewhere, and we'll say good sized banquet room or something. And everybody just sit down, have dinner, talk, hey, how's your family? How's everybody doing? You put new tires on your truck, stuff like that.
I
And
do have the playroom at McDonald's down here on Main Street reserved.
I'll second that. As long as we can sit down somewhere, if you want to do a salad and a glass of water, that's fine. But I just think it actually worked out good the first time I personally myself ever went was with the Historic Properties Commission, and that was like decades ago.
Yeah, you still a boy.
Well, watch it there, Scooter.
So we're looking to, so our December meeting would be on the 9th of December, then if we have a meeting in December, it'll be on the 9th.
Right.
That's second Thursday.
Okay, and
Yeah,
then probably the following week, we would probably meet up. The last few times we did it was at the cutting board. I do remember that. They had a decent little menu, grilled chicken or steak or something like that. You just get what you're gonna get and everything was fine. So,
Sounds like he wants to handle it this year.
no, Rod's gonna handle it. I'm not bothering with your organizational skills, but it's on you.
What day are you thinking?
I'm gonna cut out. I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Thank
evening.
you very much, Mark. Thank you.
Good thing he ain't got that.
Generally, Rod, when did we do them dinners last time? Was it on Wednesday or Thursday night? It wasn't a Wednesday night because that's church night.
It was either Tuesday or
I
Thursday.
understand that, but tomorrow's Veterans Day, we can't be on that day.
It was either Tuesday or Thursday.
I'm thinking you're right.
What we need to do is decide tonight how many people are interested. And then we need to make a call and find out where we can get on the schedule, because time's getting close.
You're right.
Okay,
So Miss Sandy, what about yourself?
I'm
And
fine.
spouses or suggested?
What
All right,
day are you talking about doing?
Either a Tuesday or a
Either a
Thursday.
Tuesday or Thursday after the planning board meeting, the following week.
About Thursday the 16th.
Can't do it Thursday.
Well, we-
16th.
All right, and what about Tuesday the 14th?
I can do that.
All right, then Tuesday the 14th, let's work.
I mean, I'm
on-
just saying, that's just me, but don't do it just
No.
because of me.
I like you.
That's why I'm asking you what day it is, cause I
We
do
need
have another,
But it may depend
We
on
need to
state
make-
and stuff too.
call to restaurants. and
you better find out where you can get a plug.
Yeah.
That's the reason we're a little
Might
not.
put my tailgate of the truck down and stand out here.
But we are for sure meeting.
I've got a charcoal grill and we can do that.
For this board. We have a set meeting schedule that allows for a meeting in December if the board wants subcommittee to evaluate and hold on all the other amendments. We can bring it back in December if that's what the board wishes. Commissioners only meet one time in January, so,
Would be nice if we had something for them, huh?
well, I don't know, it depends on how full that agenda is. Because they only meet one time in January. But this was interesting to them when we brought the last, when Simple Times came to them. They were interested in seeing what the planning board could do about RV park ordinance, so.
I think they ought to have their Wednesday night. I believe we ought to have our meeting in December like we normally have done. I think we need to go to dinner and enjoy a baked potato and a piece of pie and just enjoy Christmas.
You need a motion.
We
For
need,
Rodney to think of one.
we need to know
No,
a number
just
first.
how many people for show of hands are
I'm
interested?
interested. All right, so we got, all right, so
Okay,
far.
so everybody's interested.
Yeah, and-
Everybody's
and
interested.
figure on, like I said, spouses, but don't bring your wife and girlfriend at the same time.
Yes,
Um,
gotta be
Ray,
one
can
of
we
the
get
other.
One more thing, just,
Ray can tell you why. He done that one year and he speaks with authority when he says, don't bring your wife and your
I did not
girlfriend.
do no such a thing.
can we get one more point of clarification? So we have said the RV part, we're sending back to subcommittee. Can we get a motion on what we're doing with UDO? Do we want to table that to go along with the RV part for the rest of the amendments?
Do we have a motion on the UDO?
Yeah, we don't have one yet, that's what I need.
Make a motion to table that.
Well, you can't table something you don't have. You have to have a motion to table it.
So the motion that we heard first, I understood it as being a motion to return the mobile home and trailer park section back, but we had the other edits. So
Oh,
the
the
recording, the
junk car cars and
subdivisions,
that
the
kind of thing.
criminal penalties, and the abandoned and junk car, which we can move forward with if we feel prepared and don't have questions on those.
Where it can go.
Why do we need Patrick? That was about as lawyerly as anything I've ever heard in my life.
I done looked up,
She asked me first. I fed her the no.
Good job, brother.
Patrick, I done looked up there looking at that thing she's got on that page right. I done seen you yawn about 6 or 7 times already.
I move we table the balance of this motion until our December meeting.
A second.
All those in favor?
I
Opposed? All right, now what's next?
move we adjourn.
So we're working on the snow count zoning ordinance. We're working with the subcommittee. Then we'll meet next week for a draft. We'll go back to the public, get that right in the beginning of the year. And y'all are gonna see it soon after. So the draft will be out on the website as soon as the subcommittee gives us some guidance next week. We'll send an email out, but we do encourage y'all to jump in. Patrick's looking at it for us. It doesn't look like it's terrible, so we'll get y'all's input. It'll officially come before y'all, but we'll take comments from anybody during the process because we want to, and we've heard the public have made some amendments already. So we want to do the best we can with that one.
That was the discussion.
And we do have a new planner coming on board.
Who?
Gentleman's name is Ian
Ian what?
Shannon.
Okay.
He comes to us out of the Raleigh area. He'll be starting with us hopefully next week. He's got to get through our HR process, but Taylor is our planner too. Obviously, y'all know why. He's coming in as our planner one. He is educated, but not so much experience. So we're going to be his experience, but you may see something come from a new person in planning, and that's what.
Okay.
Very nice.
Are we
That's
good?
all I got.
Is that all you got?
Three.
Still got more in.
Hey, keep,
Teresa counts.
hey, keep it up. She's gonna be able to get one of those retired, sheriff's department chargers to be riding around checking on things.
Already got one.
Go ahead.
I done made it. You just need a second.
Who seconded it?
Lee.
Let's do it.
Y'all gonna meet next week?
Yeah, that's fine. Wednesday.
That works.